Welcome, everybody, to the COACHMC studio. Welcome to this beautiful masterclass. Welcome to the place where we'll help you actors, performers, entertainers to really shape unique behavior deliveries and stand out in the audition room, no matter where the audition takes place, no matter what you're auditioning for, because in the end, as creatives nowadays, it's all about communicating your ideas in a successful, impactful, and remarkable manner. And today's masterclass, I'm really pumped about it because it's one of those superpowers a lot of us creatives, public speakers, communicators kind of neglect, even though it should be so obvious, right? Because the power is right in front of you. And like always, sometimes the truth hides right in plain sight. It's right there, it's staring back at you. It's black ink on white paper. It's this script. It's the author's world. It's that incredible universe that waits just for you to kind of plunge yourself into the adventure without any holds barred, right? And sometimes it's difficult to kind of really decipher what's written there and effectively deconstruct it for our purposes. So today, I want to show you some of the tools that I've gathered throughout my experience and some of the stuff that I was taught by my masters, but also a lot of things that I've kind of discovered on my own, because my acting quest started way before I actually entered the industry and was part of the system and the agencies and all that. I started as a kid and I migrated naturally and organically into this big glittering world. And so there's a lot of things today that for the first time I disclosed that I've learned on my own through my own experience that helped me a lot. And so always, this is very subjective and objective at the same time, but I can tell you it definitely worked for me, and I hope it will work for you, or at least you will take something away that will enrich in your toolbox, your set of skills that you have already, and kind of, magnify your talents to such a level where it becomes undeniable, right? That you are a master of your craft, where there is no way getting around you, that you somehow represent a linchpin, a novelty, a unique, valuable product. And we love to kind of, having these conversations like these masterclasses, because they help us to connect and, of course, to improve. So without any further ado, let's jump right into it and let's see what's cooking. Today's masterclass, like I said, is breaking down the script. And there are, of course, many ways of breaking down any type of skill, of any script, or anything that you read, or any information that you will receive. And I just want, before we start with the doodle and with the analysis, and with the 4 fundamental points and a bonus tip by the end of this presentation, so stick to the very end, right? Because we have a grandiose bonus tip by the end coming up that will definitely help you to kind of, extract the most out of the script and kind of find your interpretation and add something very unique and remarkable and recognizable that is, your core proposition into this, right? So therefore you make it your own product, it's more valuable, and therefore the connection will be way more intimate and personal. And I feel like sometimes when we approach things, of course, we tend to, act out of our own character and purpose. And today I want to show you that there is always, there are always 2 sides to analyzing, to learning, to implementing, to acting upon something. There is a rational, a structured, and an analytical side to it. But there's always also a very passionate, a visceral, and an intuitional side to it. And today I want to show you both sides that go into the reading process, to really breaking down the script from a rational standpoint, from a logical and analytical standpoint, but also to kind of understand it subconsciously and viscerally and humanly. And when both come together in equal parts, then they create a new amalgam, something amazing, right? Because there are, of course, many workshops online that you can find about this, many acting schools teaching you more or less the techniques. But this is, to me, the highly condensed, most effective form to break down the script in 4 main pillars, to have 2 pillars on the left side of things, structural, analytical, logical, and to have two pillars on the more visceral, subconscious, emotional side of things, where we take down the script and build the world and the character for more, from a more humorous standpoint rather than from a logical standpoint. And so therefore, I'm truly excited about it. I thought in many ways how to do this, and I'm coming from the drawing and artistic background. So to me, the best way also to express things is visually. And maybe you've known the COACHMC studio from before. We have a YouTube channel where we have open class doodles, tactical doodles for success, where we show drawings to kind of, accentuate, explain, or exemplify something like the casting topic, like breaking down the script topics and other topics that are super important and fundamental for communicators and actors and entertainers. And I feel like that always breaking down stuff also in images is super powerful to exactly what I just mentioned, right? To not just learn it and see it, but just to absorb it also from a visceral standpoint. So therefore, I created a drawing for today's presentation, and I hope you're gonna enjoy it. This is the golden cross. These are the four main pillars of what I'm talking about today on how to break down the script. And we will also have a bonus tip by the end of this presentation. So let's jump into the analytical, logical, and rational part first that we should, kind of all do in order to really understand what's going on in the script. So when you get a script, your sides as an actor, whether that's for a self-tape, whether that's for an audition, or if that's already the script you will be working and shooting with, right? Before you get into the nitty-gritty of the artistic side, first kind of, break down some very fundamental informations for yourself. Make sure to research all available infos that you can get, because usually when you get a script, when you receive a script, there is something called a log line or just a little note from whether the casting director's office or from your agent, where you have some sort of like a synopsis, where you have a little summary of all the people who will be involved in this project, right? Everybody from the director, the writer, the producer, the casting department, what are the times and dates? When is this actually taking place? Whether that's the audition or the actual shooting, right? Because this is truly important. Sometimes we get scripts and we kind of tend to forget that there is a certain, they're not waiting for us, right? There's a certain date when they're going to shoot this. So make sure that this date is open to you, that you can actually apply for this. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense technically, right? If you can really be there to kind of go through all the effort. Make sure to know the locations where they're going to shoot this. If there are any stunts, anything with your body majorly, any skills required. If there are any personal notes, right? Make sure to have this really mapped out as thoroughly as you can. A lot of people tend to kind of, yeah, it's okay, it doesn't matter. We are excited about, we're creatives. I want to produce, I want to act, I want to shoot the self-tape, right? I want to be part of this production, right? No matter what. And then we, sometimes it's the little things, these very structural details, these transactional details that make us come up with a creative solution for the scene or for the character, way more than all the enthusiasm and all the passion that we can bring in. I always say this, you need structure first, then you can explore your creativity, your chaos, and then you need some structure afterwards to kind of reflect upon the chaos that you just produced in order to get the necessary informations out of what you just did, right? In order to understand what worked and what didn't work that well, so you can implement that into your next presentation. You can get better and improve along the way. So make sure to really research all the available info about this project. The more you know, the more you grow. And yes, sometimes it can be also intimidating by finding out that this is a great producer or there's like a great director attached to it. But that shouldn't be the case. It's just wonderful to know that already important people want to see you and that you're already in the process of, kind of joining the echelons of entertainment industry. So de-escalate that by kind of breaking down all the informations and taking notes. By that, you're already getting acquainted with the picture. It's not about just, I have to impress them. No, I'm already part of the process. I'm already part of the workflow. I'm understanding who the responsible people are. And make sure also to look these people up, to see their pictures, to know visually how they look and what kind of feeling they give you. What is it that makes you interesting to these people? Kind of try to reverse engineer this process. If you see a certain director's face, right, and he has this open, funny face, it's like, okay, what is it most likely that this guy kind of is liking, right? Where is he coming from? Maybe you're listening to some interviews of these people. Make sure to really get an understanding of the fertile soil where you're about to insert your seed of creativity in order to blossom, right? In order to let that tree, blossom up. Does that make sense as a metaphor? Because it's again, this is so overlooked by most of them, but actually a real pro, a Hollywood actor, he goes for that stuff and he picks everything apart. He goes into Facebook, he goes into Instagram, he goes into TikTok. He looks up all these people. He tries to kind of connect with them. Maybe he goes to their events. There's a great book I can highly recommend you to read. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People, written by Dale Carnegie in 1936. There's even like a digitally applied version, how you can, but actually the old school version, the first book that came out in the 30s and 1930s, you can still use that book as a strategy tool for all these types of soft structure endeavors in order to kind of proceed in your business, into your industry. And this is exactly what I'm talking about right now. Just make sure to connect, to be part of this process, to feel more acquainted with it. That de-escalates already, like being scared or seeing this as too big, or maybe, oh no, this I don't deserve this, or this is too overwhelming. No, by recognizing that these are human beings, that they're all interested in something and that they're looking for you, basically, you get way more acquainted with the idea. You feel way more confident and comfortable about auditioning as well, besides, of course, informing the character. So read and research as much as you can. On the left side, I have some bullet points like investigate, be your own Batman, right? Detect what's interesting, and already, if you have thoughts, if you have questions about this and you have enough time, usually for self-tapes, the time crunch is way higher, but there's always space and there's always a window for asking a question, right? If you're uncertain about something, if you want more specifications, if you need more details or infos, usually people are happy to share that. And it just shows that you're interested and invested in the project. That just speaks for your professionalism. People love that when somebody is passionate about the structural side. Actors are more focused on the creative side. We all, as artists, I had to learn this the hard way, right? Because like I told you in the beginning, I grew up with this, right, as a kid. And I somehow, when I was breaking down the script, I did things that nobody really taught me. I was self-taught all the way. Of course, I was picking up from directors and people I was working with, but I kind of developed my own strategy. And at a certain point, I hit like a brick wall. I realized this isn't enough anymore. I need to buckle up some technical skills and more information about how to kind of decipher what's written in the script. I need more granular and substantial vectors in order to build up a great and compelling character. It's not enough just coming from my intuitional background and the way I did it. So I had to kind of, research and add new resources to my already existing toolbox. And, the further time develops, the more you will develop also your own method. What I'm sharing today is stuff that worked for me. Breaking the script down is what I'm showing you today, what I'm trying to give you today is, of course, a very personal development. And so everybody has its own development. I'm just trying to give you the most, let's say, the most adaptable tools, because then you can, you can make them more, you can modify them, and you can, you create your own style. I always, want to reinforce that there is no unique way of breaking down a script, or a unique way of acting, or a unique way of being a great performer. It's your way. It's your way alone. So these are just ideas, tips. These are just catalysts of thoughts, of chain reactions inside of your mental apparatus. And then how you apply them, how you translate them for yourself, what you want to use out of it. It's absolutely up to you, right? This is there is no automatism in creativity. It's a repetition that gets better through the improvement. And the improvement is always a result of your reflection. And the reflection is, of course, based on your action, what you undertake as an action, and the willingness to fail, to experiment, to, to try out stuff where maybe you're gonna, do some mistakes in the beginning, but through that is the crucial part. You learn what works for you and for you alone and what not. And so you discard what's useless and you just keep what's useful. After reading the script for the first time and researching all the available info, kind of, go pregnant with that and marinate on a lot of these informations, and then read the log line, the storyline of the script. And again, if you find any special notes, if there are some notes about the characters you're involved with, the main characters of the plot. If you're not having, a main character, if you're not one of the protagonists, there is, reference material sometimes included by the production company when it's an historic piece or when they want to give you some mood boards. Sometimes it's even the pitch deck. The pitch deck is pretty much a presentation a director does for the production company in order to get his project greenlighted, right? So he kind of presents a Bible with the most, compelling, with the crucial points of the movie, with the crucial characters, with all the, pivotal things that are important for the director's vision. And he kind of, hands this over to the production company. And then the production company, sets up a budget for that and says, all right, this is good stuff. We can produce this. It makes sense. And then it gives out the pitch deck or a synopsis to the casting director, who then starts looking for the adequate, characters, for the adequate actors, for the adequate roles. And what you can do sometimes is, whether the pitch deck is inserted or not, you can request it if there is any chance of getting it, so you get an idea also what the director was envisioning. Otherwise, you create it. And what I mean by that, and we will go to the second part more into detail, is like, you start collecting all these pictures, right? You start, based on the reference material that they're giving you, or, the style of the production that they're referring to, you start to kind of look into that material for yourself. Again, it's about creating structure for your character, doing the right research, doing some analysis based on that research. And if there are some episodes that are involving your storyline that were shot before you actually get into the project, make sure to watch them, right? All of them, right? Make sure that you fully understand the storyline of the plot that brought to this very moment where you now appear on the scene, where you now are presenting your movie. And again, understand by asking questions, because it is truly important to understand where your character is in the context, how important it is. Is this a major role? Is this a smaller role? Smaller in terms of the people he's interacting with. When you count all of your lines, how many lines do you have? So what type of importance do they play in the context of the scene and of the movie? All this stuff. Make sure to put it down on paper, to really write it down, not on your desktop computer, on paper, to write it down, to make notes alongside your script. I highly, encourage people always to have multiple copies of the script, because what I do sometimes is to really have two research tracks that I apply. And so I highlight the script according to the stuff that I'm asking about the character. And then I have a different highlight method when it's really about shooting and kind of just interpreting the character, right? This is more like my Old Testament, and this is more my New Testament, if we want to have a religious metaphor here playing. But you get the idea. First, we place that archive for ourselves, so it's working, so we know everything. And then, of course, it's about kind of acting it out, and then it's more intentional. This part, this part that I suggest doing first, this structure part, is a part that I feel most comfortable practicing, especially in the morning, because it's more like a research paper. It's more like conducting, an investigation. And I love to do this more in the morning. I get up, I'm fresh. I get a couple of shots of espresso, usually a lot of shots of espresso. And I start doing all this transactional work about my character, about the script. I set up myself some nice music in the background. I kind of, detach myself from all the potential distractions. And I really dive into kind of breaking this down quite analytically. And I have fun with this, especially in the morning, because this is, the daily circadian rhythm. I pointed this out also in a previous masterclass. This is basically how our engine up here operates, right? And there are operating hours for the left side of the brain and the right side. And the left side, the analytical, logical, rational part, is more operational, functions in a better way, especially in the morning. And the right side of the brain, which is more like the esoterical, the inspirational, the more the artistic side of the brain, that part, that hemisphere actually works better in the afternoon. And then we have a very dry phase, the trough that we hit from 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. roughly, right? This is not always 100% working. Don't kind of nail me down on every single minute, but roughly this is how 75% of humanity's brain work. Morning stuff is logical stuff. Evening stuff is more creative stuff. And in the middle, we should avoid doing very important things because usually, mentally we are a bit, tired in that transitional period. Again, if you have any questions regarding this, make sure to take down some notes. At the end, we're going to have a nice extended Q&A where you can ask me everything. And we will then also kind of jump into, more granular details about this. If nothing major is going on, I would say we jump to the right side of analyzing the script. This is pretty much, like I said, the structural fundament. Here we have more the visceral fundament. So point number 3 about breaking down the script. When you look at the script, and let's say it's a time period, let's say it's an historical piece, but even if it's 5 years ago, right? But even if it's contemporary, make sure to research what are the circumstances of the world where the script is taking place. What are the political circumstances? What is sociologically going on, psychologically? How do people feel? You can ask yourself this on a global scale or on a local scale. If the script kind of just portrays a region, a state, or just a determinant like city, then ask yourself what is going on psychologically in this city. How does the city feel by the time the script is operating, by the time this movie is taking place? What type of era, epoch was that? And what does it mean for my character to be in that time period? Maybe let's say I'm a woman, right? In the 19th century in Industrial Revolution England, where it was not even allowed to kind of vote, to be a participant at the elections or to even have a driver's license, right? So crazy stuff like that. So ask yourself, what kind of implications, restrictions, restraints to my personal development have I maybe encountered in that period? Was there something major going on, like a war? Or was there something globally, environmentally going on? Maybe there was like a pandemic or a famine, or there was like a drought, right? All these things could inform you more granularly about how your character feels. So research time is super, super important. And I feel this is the fun part of acting. Like if you ask me, all the parts that I played that made it most fun were the parts where I had to do this type of research and kind of find out about the skills that this person was practicing and kind of learning how, I don't know, like to be a lumberjack or how to play an instrument or to sing or to dance in a certain way or to speak with a certain accent or to behave in a certain manner that was, kind of adequate for that time period, sociologically or geographically, right? So these are the fun things because they give us so much stimulation, so many impulses, so many facets, and they enrich in the product. And a real pro behind the desk, observing and evaluating and assessing your work, like a casting director, like a director, producer, they see this work. The work shows, right? They see exactly that you did your homework. It's one thing to have talent, and that is beautiful, and that is super necessary, of course. And of course, that is also the driving factor when you're auditioning, when you're playing. But all this other information feeds this talent. It just makes the stream even stronger. So don't neglect this part of the work, because I feel sometimes, even with our clients in the beginning, there's a lot of inertia. There's a lot of resistance to doing this in this research work, even though, of course, it's fun, but it takes time. You have to sit down, you have to focus, you have to kind of take your minute, because you can't do this between, the door, and you need to really sit down with yourself and take your time to do this. And so most of the times there's opposition, but hey, this is where we open ourselves up. If we want to create beautiful art that conveys an idea, this is exactly the process we need to go through. We can't expect to produce great outcome by doing mediocre preparation, right? If we want to dominate our industry, we have to dominate our rehearsals, our practice. Let's say I'm a musician and I want to apply for a band, for a famous band. Let's say I want to join Red Hot Chili Peppers or Metallica, or I don't know, what is the name of this German band? Now I just, very famous, Rammstein, right? I want to apply for one of those great bands. How do you think the process goes? How can I select as a band if this musician or the other musician is more appropriate? Of course, I assess his behavior, his personality. If he's a team player, that's super important, right? If we are on tour for a long time, if we stay in very constrained rooms for, the majority of our next 2 years, and we have to kind of run from one show to the other and record in the recording booth, and there's a lot of functioning transactional things, right? To be a band, it's not just creation, it's also repetition a lot. So I need to assess if that human being is able to perform that, but then the musician has to show me his talent, right? The musician has to show me, his technical expertise, his skills, how he can, whether he's auditioning as a guitarist or as a drummer, he needs to show me. So he has brought a piece that he dominates, that he masters, right? To kind of show me what type of musician he is, right? So he's playing something very complicated, or he's singing something very fancy, something that is part of his repertoire, part of his creative portfolio. And that thing that he shows speaks for him as an artist, right? That represents him, that piece of art. And so he needs to kind of, blow me away. He needs to convince me that he wants this job and he's great at performing, right? And the same thing is true for the actor. He needs to know his instrument in and out, what he performs as a role. That needs to be the masterclass of his repertoire. It's not just a couple of lines he's saying. And the musician needs to exercise and rehearse constantly. And this is his work. It's daily, it's inevitable, and it will do it for the rest of his life. And for us actors, research, reading out loud, doing all these types of, background, infos, and collecting all these impulses and ideas and notions, right? This is part of our work. This is how we get better with our performing instrument. Does that make sense? We can't really pretend to go in there and slam them, out of their seats by not preparing ourselves on the highest levels. And this is part of that preparation. This is an integral part, I would say, fundamental part. I really mean this. Like, breaking down the script is truly one of the core. Yeah, it's one of the core functions of an actor. It's think of Jim Carrey, right? You see Jim Carrey performing his body distortions. He's hilarious. He's super funny, all that, right? You think, yeah, it's all this. It's all his physique. It's all this act, right? Where does he break down the script? But if you see Jim Carrey acting dramatic roles, and you see him really acting and playing, Eternal Sunshine of His Spotless Mind, The Number 23, Truman Show, you name it. There are a lot of dramatic roles he plays. Man in the Moon, another great movie by Milos Forman. Highly recommend you to watch these movies. You can see how much work he actually does. by thinking, by being authentic, by delivering something new and unexpected. And this is all research work. It doesn't just pop out of the blue. This is stuff where he thinks like, what is the history of this character? Where does my movie start inside of that movie? Because as characters, we get to play these 90 minutes, right? This is still part of tip number 3, by the way. I just wanted to kind of illustrate how important it is, right? So after asking ourselves, assessing the time period, and I went on this little derail because I can tell you that these professionals that will hire us in the future, they can tell if we did this homework. They see it because we have different things we can fall back onto. We have different ways of interpreting because we can, implement the adjustments by the director way quicker because we have different options. And all these options, all these new ideas, all these implementations, they come from this research work. They come from the study beforehand. They come from doing this type of crazy stuff before we actually shoot. And like I said, they know that you're doing this. So it's, the quality always pays out. Does that mean that you will immediately, kind of book all your auditions? Well, maybe, I hope so. I mean, definitely it helps, but it's not about booking the audition. It's about getting better and leaving a legacy because these people will notice that you're going somewhere with your product. And then when time comes, there is no such thing as luck. It's preparation meets opportunity. Forget the word luck. Throw it out of your window. Prepare yourself, and you will see the universe will send you the opportunity to show what you're capable of. And then people from the outside who are superficial, who maybe judge you or are envious or jealous of you, they will tell, oh, yeah, she was so lucky. Oh, Angelica, Lauren, Victoria, Carmen, they're lucky fellas, right? This is how they want to kind of decrease your value, but it's nothing to do with luck. It's all about being entrenched with your art and trying to really put out your best art every time you get called to action. How? With this. So research your time period, and then when you see the script and you open it up, the script takes 90 minutes, 100 minutes, right? Ask yourself first, what is the time arc of my character inside of the script? Does he stay a couple of days inside of that movie, a couple of months, a couple of years? Think of Forrest Gump, right? A movie that brought us, like on a huge time arc for the character. So he changes through time. He has maybe a disability physically, or maybe an epiphany mentally. Things are changing for this character throughout time. So make sure you know exactly, because in movies we are not shooting chronologically. Sometimes you get to shoot your death scene at the first day of shooting. And so that death scene, right, needs to require all the previous accumulated information throughout the movie. So you need to be aware of everything that you did before that last scene. So to know exactly where you are on the time arc is another major help to kind of have every scene mapped out clearly for you, politically, sociologically, physically, emotionally, psychologically. Have I mentioned all the L's? I hope so. All the emotionally, psychologically, physically. This is basically the most important part. So you start somewhere in the movie, but your character's arc, even if it's been told for many years, it's not your whole life. There was a life before the movie, another movie that happened. So you have to ask yourself two things. This would be point 3A and 3B, I guess. Two things. What was my life experience before I entered this reality, before I entered the movie? Because the way I react to certain things, how I act out on certain things, the way I interact, the way I cherish the relationships inside of the movie is highly based on what I've accumulated as an experience, as a life experience, as the character beforehand. So think about where you're coming from. How many years do you live before entering this movie? And let's say you have a smaller character that doesn't always interact, that hasn't a lot of exposition time. There is the start of the movie, like I said here. And throughout the movie, you sometimes are crossing the timeline, so you are visible, and sometimes you kind of phase out and then you come in like an oscillation. So the other events that you're experiencing that we're not telling in the movie, make sure to take notes. Make sure to know what you're doing when you're not visible. So where are you going? Usually there is a note like he's exiting, she's going to someone. Yeah, we don't show that scene in the movie, but it's great if you know what happened there, because by the next scene you are inserted in the timeline again. The director, the producer, the people there, they expect you to have that emotional luggage that occurred during those other events that we are not actively shown in the movie. Does that make sense? So think about that stuff. Like what happened when you were not visible? And here's a funny thing. What did other people say in your absence? If there are any quotes, any remarks people make about you when you're not in the room, make sure to take them down as well, right? Write them down. It's like, what are people thinking of me, by the way? Or what are they saying about me? Are they judging me? It's like, this is a great way to establish also how your long-term relationship with the other characters evolves throughout the script. That was a very long sentence, I know. Right. But it's actually that, like, how does it change over time and why? And usually the why you can determine by knowing what they say, right? Because this gives out their real motivation. So make sure to kind of take that into account, because it could happen that sometimes you have a scene with someone who doesn't actually like you and you are playing as if you're friends. This happened to me sometimes. When you change on a daily basis the shooting schedule and also the characters that are playing certain scenes, especially in series, web series, soap operas and sitcoms and dailies, it can happen sometimes that a character gets replaced or that the line is now gets migrated to another character. So you need to understand sometimes, oh, there, I have another relationship with this guy. I know that because this guy said something bad about me 2 days ago. I wasn't there though. So you kind of need to double check sometimes on these things, because of course, as professionals, all these authors are and these great networks are, there's always the chance for a little mistake. And Alessandra, my amazing wife and the vice president of this endeavor, who's also script supervisor for over 2 decades now, can sing a very long song about that for actors coming on set and not really knowing what scene they are actually playing right now on the timeline, or what other characters think about them, and behaving in an inadequate way for their character's context in the moment when they're shooting the scene, because they have missed out on a detail or on an important piece of information. So quotes are a very powerful tip here on the side to kind of determine, more what your character thinks and acts like. And like I said, this is the right side of our hemisphere, right? We're now in the more abstract and the more irrational part of our brain when we're breaking down the script. So just, this information that you collect is, ask yourself all these questions for yourself. Is like, why is she saying that about me? Really, is like, what is the reason for that? Take some notes about that. Just make it an investigation on your own. Oh, follow your hunches, your intuition. Maybe it's because of that and that reason, or maybe she doesn't like me because of my backstory, or maybe there's something else going on, like in a competition I wasn't aware of. Because believe me, this is another very important part. Competition usually gets left out of the picture, but competition is the one force that drives us all. We're all competing. Just eliminate that thought out of your mind that you're a non-aggressive or a non-competing person, or that you're not competitive at all. That's just denying your potential. We're competing against time. We're competing against ourselves, against the yesterday version of ourselves. We're competing against the system. We're competing on a daily, and that's good. Evolutionary biology has proven that competition keeps us alive. It makes us come up with solutions, makes us think about stuff in a new way. And all these things, they make us as a person. They define us way more. So as a character, don't exclude competition. Put in as much competition as you can with the other characters, with yourself, with your family, with the environment, with the system, whatever it is. We are competing as actors. We're looking for the conflict, for the clash, for the competition. The 3 important C's of a scene: conflict, clash, competition. Another thing I like to do, so research all available info, read the logline, the story, understand the tone, the style of everything, take in all the notes, then read the script again, do your research about the time period. Was there an accent maybe involved in that time? Make sure you know exactly what piece it is, how your life looked before you entered the movie, how many kind of, crossroads, kind of knots you have with the other protagonists. Where do you exist in the story, where you don't exist? Make sure to kind of get an assessment of what people think of you and how that determines your long-term relationships. That's all just here a bit more schematic way. What I do then is when I've assessed everything beforehand correctly, I go on, and people who are joining the readytoperform.com program, by the way, you're more than welcome to do so, and just hit us up on readytoperform.com if you want to, kind of enhance your artistic toolbox. If you want to add a new monologue to your portfolio, if you want to create a new start in your career, if you have any other questions about auditions or anything else, hit us up on readytoperform.com. Send me a DM, a direct mail, whatever it is, and let's get into discovery session, and let's find out if we're a great match, if we want to, continue working with each other, because definitely there's a lot that I can do to help you to perform better and to get your, really make your entrance into entertainment industry. But whoever has done that already knows exactly that I'm a big fan of trees. I give a lot of tree assignments, right? I'm kind of obsessed with the tree, and there are a lot of acting assignments, a lot of acting exercises, more of on the mental side, of course, more on the analytical side and research side, that where I somehow involved a tree. And here, what I did over time is, whenever I'm breaking down a script, I'm building my character, I'm drawing my character as if it's a tree. And then I look, if I think of the tree Corona, of course I have a big abundance of many millions of leaves, right? There are millions of leaves up there. And I think as myself, as the character, is like, where, like I put here, is like, who are the people I have most relationships with in the script? This is my part of the corona. This is my part of the tree. It's like, my character is here. That's the golden leaf, right? Who have I, when I dissect the script, when I break it down, who have I most scenes with? Is this my brother in this case, my wife? I have also some scenes with my mother. And then, I just broke down this character that had this life that he passed also in a hospital for many years. So there was this also huge branch of the stories with the nurse. And I had very, few contact points with my father in the script or with my work situation. It was more tending on this side. So if you just do this character tree map for yourself, and you ask yourself, okay, my roots, where are they? Where is my character coming from? How did I grow up? What is my trunk? What is my experience? What made me stronger, right? What protected my core? And now that I'm a grown person, like, who have I the most relevant, important, meaningful relationships with? And also you can write down, why is that so? But it's more just to have a schematic idea to understand, hey, these are the scenes I have to focus on. This is a very important relationship for the director and for the author. This is a relationship that is minor. Why is that relationship minor? Let's say here I have way more scenes with my brother than with my father. I could ask myself, why is that? Right? Like, why is my relationship with my father so weak? Because I don't like him, because he doesn't like me, because he lives somewhere else, because there were problems in the past, is there a traumatic experience, an accident? What happened there, right? Why am I so, what is the reason for me that work is not so important, right? And all these things can lead us to, again, different questions, more and more information that we can disclose. It's really about unearthing as many artifacts, like archaeologists, like a good researcher, as unearth as many gold nuggets as you can out of the creative soil of the text, because there's way more in there than just black ink on white paper. You know, if we just allow ourselves to go through these processes a couple of times, read it aloud, go through the notions, really breaking down the script, being honest with our answers, and reading, we will discover we are the tool, we are the magnifying lens. We will discover ourselves where we have our inflections, where we find empathy, where we find disgust, where we find anger, where we find fear, where we find attraction. We will detect them. And we need to train ourselves to be these human detectors, because no one else will tell us. Otherwise, we will always be pulled by someone else's string. We don't want that. Like I said in the beginning, I want to teach you to be self-sufficient with your endeavors, to have all the tools ready, and then to, of course, form them and morph them according to your quest, according to your toolbox, according to your talents, and make the best out of it, so you be a self-sustained organism, like here, a holistic organism of performance, where the left side, the analytical, the structural, the logical, functions effectively without any friction, but also the right side, the access to your emotions, to the visceral experience, to the more subconscious feelings, desires, wishes, this burning stuff that we have inside, gets immediate access to our performing channels, and gets immediate access, and therefore it informs our lines and our physicality in a different way. And so by balancing these two powers, the blue and red power, out in a, you know, effective and adequate organic way, we become very powerful performers. And eventually, by repeating this process endlessly for many, many years, we become masters. And then we become apprentice again. But definitely we have achieved a master level. And when we have mastery level, we not only get paid much, we enjoy the whole process way more. So yeah, there is a lot of background work that probably you weren't aware of, or maybe now you just realize how much it actually is. But this background work is really the golden tool. Because yes, talent, energy, passion, like I said, it's good, but we can't just solely rely on that. Because what do you do when you have a bad day? What is it? Will you always say no to an audition just because you hurt, because you had a bad experience or something happened? No, we go there. You can't just call the theater after they booked you and they give you some nice advance in cash and say, no, tonight I don't want to appear on stage. We need to appear on stage, even if we don't feel so. That's also the beauty in the therapeutic experience. And I'm out of personal experience, when you feel bad, acting makes you feel better. Like whenever I felt like fever or something bad happening in my life, is like going on stage is way better than just sitting on the couch. Going on stage and kind of releasing all to the audience, and gaining that feedback, gaining the applause, or gaining a pat on the back of your shoulders by the producer or by the director, and telling you, hey, good job. This is way better than just sitting in your own thoughts and kind of grueling with negative emotions. No, go out there and perform. But sometimes I understand the energy level is low, so we need to have a structure into place that helps us to compensate when energy levels are low, with all the structural work, that we're still able to perform on a high level of quality, at least 85% of our capabilities. Does that make sense? Because 85%, that's the minimum required level nowadays. Now think of yourself from 0 to 100. 85%, that needs to be your minimum quality level. We need to get up there. And you can't just do that by just energy and passion, or just thoughts and rational, right? Both have to come together. So, like you can see on the four corners of this, I wrote read, right? Read. You can ignore all this if you want, as long as you read the script and you read it continuously, loud, whisper it, read it soft, read it in all the ways you can. I rap it sometimes, I sing it sometimes, I do drawings about it, because the more you read it, the more you repeat it, the more pictures, images, and also emotions will pop up. And if you combine a thought and a picture or an image in your mind with an emotion, then you have an action. Then you have already an inspiration to do something, right? And this is where an acting scene gets born. Take a little breather here before we jump to the bonus tip. Just catching up with you guys. I hope everything was clear so far. if you have, like I said, also for the Q&A later, already some questions, place it in the chat box. Don't worry. Yes, I mean, yes and no, according to your question, Victoria. Where's the difference between point 2 and 3? Doesn't they mix into each other? Not necessarily, and yes. So again, this is work that happens on both angles, right? On both sides. That means that you look at something from always from two perspectives. There's no way of kind of separating it completely in your head and saying, no, this is just the analytical part. But in the beginning, point number 2, this is more the log line. This is more the synopsis. This is more the storyline. This is more the technical information. This is more the stuff that you receive from the production, from the casting director, sometimes from the director, in order to get you up to speed about all the technical background, right? Who's producing this? It hasn't really to do when you think about point 3, which is way more in the script of thinking as the character and not, kind of assembling all the information. This is part, the point 3 and 4 is already the character work, is already the, the reading character analysis work. Like I said in the beginning, this is more the analytical part. 1, 2, 3, and 4 is more the executional part. And of course, they come together. Yeah, the line sometimes is blurry. It kind of definitely shifts. If you, for example, if you write down, if you take notes and you say you determine the style, the tone, the atmosphere of the movie because you're receiving a pitch deck or a mood board by your production. Sometimes they do that, right? They send you over like a pitch deck to kind of explain to you what the movie's going to look like. Hey, this is going to be let's say a buddy movie. Hey, this is going to be a combination of Bad Boys and Dumb and Dumber, right? So they want to tell you it's an absurd action comedy, like a Martin Lawrence movie, something like that. So you get an idea of the atmosphere and the tone and the style and the rhythm of the movie. That already is sort of also more of an abstract information, right? Because now you start thinking about the style, about what you could wear for the self-tape or on set, or if you have any ideas what you could, say or, maybe sing as the character. These things already are part of the right hemisphere. I get that, but somehow, the lines are blurry. I just want you just to give you more the schematic cross, so you have some sort of a blueprint right from the start. Okay, these are my 4 necessary steps in the beginning in order to kind of approach this effectively. And then, of course, you kind of, you swing back and forth. Like I said, some of these tips today, I've acquired them, through my own expertise, also by trying stuff out, right? I wasn't always sure what I was doing when I was, reading a script, especially in the beginning of my career, right? I was kind of understanding that there are other characters there and they're thinking in a different way. I have this relationship with them, but not always was I reflecting about my character. And that's normal, especially when we're starting our mission. We tend to look at stuff from our perspective. It's me acting the role, so I need to ask myself some questions, and I say the things. But like, what helped me is really understanding, first of all, asking questions is not just, do I like this, or do I despise this? It's not black and white. Asking yourself question as the character means really to kind of be digging deep or drilling deep as fast as you can, because we have something called the reptilian center in our brain. And if we ask questions for too long, we sort of get enamored with flirting with the problem, asking more and more questions and opening more and more windows. And then we are more preoccupied, because we have fun with asking questions. We are rather preoccupied with asking more and more and more questions rather than getting to the point of this exercise in the first place. So there are many acting schools, they say, oh, write a backstory for your character, write a complete backstory. And yes, you can write a backstory if you want. But again, I see sometimes clients and actors coming in with 13 pages of backstory, 10 pages of backstory, like crazy stuff. It's like, yeah, you wrote a novel, but how does this help you with this conflict in the scene? It if you deem this necessary, if you want to do this, by all means, I did this in the beginning as well, like writing backstories and being very specific where my character is coming from, the experience accumulated, all that, super cool. But get quick to the point of this. Like ask yourself really fundamental stuff and not these black and white questions that are really superficial, right? Ask yourself, who am I as the character? Where am I? What do I want from the other character, from my life, from the scene? Really ask yourself, what is it that I want? And ask yourself, what is it that I need? Because sometimes what I want, I could say, yeah, I want a car as my character. Yeah, but that's, again, that's okay. That's a mundane choice. It's a mediocre choice. Wanting a car is something everybody wants, but why do you want that car? Because you're looking for a great car that is a convertible and you want to drive down Grand Canyon and you want to take pictures and you want to have this off-road trip, or you want to go somewhere into the wilderness. So the car is just a catalyst for your freedom. So what you need is actually freedom, and you want to achieve that by buying a new car as the character. So again, here, when you're asking those questions, you can go back to the first principle. Ask yourself practical questions, but also don't be afraid of asking yourself abstract questions, stuff that isn't immediately obvious. Practical questions could be, where am I from? How did I get into this town? When did I move here? What is my education like, right? Stuff that is part of the backstory, but it could be, like I said, more bullet point wise. Or when we talked about what is my life experience that I've accumulated before I actually entered the movie. That could be also part of the practical question. But here, I want it really to be like a protocol. Like, what are the practical questions that I can ask myself as the character? It's like, why am I here in this place? What did I do in order to get here in the last 24 hours? Like really practical questions. And then, of course, you can jump into the abstract, into the right hemisphere again, and be a bit more rational and humorous and curious about it, because let's never exclude humor, out of this equation. And we can ask ourselves, like, and I get this. This is probably not for everyone, because abstract thinking is something that we need to practice. But if you would be a car, what car would you be? If you would be food, what food would you be? If you would be a song, what song would you be? What color would you be? What animal would you be? And now try to read the script as this animal or as this car. If you are a slow, enjoyable car like a heavy Cadillac, you read it in a certain pace. If you are a fast sports car, you read it with another rhythm. If you are, someone who is more color blue and more color black, your tone, your inflection will be affected by that in a certain way. If you are more color yellow and red and orange, your reading will be affected by that as well. Does that make sense? So don't always go for the practical, black and white, obvious stuff. Always go for the abstract, intuitional, irrational stuff. Another great thing that you can do is asking yourself questions by journaling them. Like, as the character, for instance, if your character is a vegetarian, right? This is what I wrote here. Or in the army, and journal why you made this choice of becoming a vegetarian, or why joining the army. Because when you're journaling this stuff as a character, make sure, of course, to kind of respect the context of the character's speech as well, right? If you are playing a researcher, then write and journal as if you are a researcher. Don't use vocabulary that a researcher wouldn't use, or that doesn't make sense for him to use, right? And if that means extra research on how researcher, talk and write, by all means, call one of your friends who has a father who is a researcher, or, look out for them on Facebook, contact them and ask them questions. This is the secondary and all the other kind of limbic system information that you collect in order to make your core value proposition richer. Like I said, you can write a backstory. You can write about your secrets. A character, like we know from Michael Shurtleff in his groundbreaking book Audition, highly recommend you to read that book. He writes that every character should have a secret, and Alfred Hitchcock, agrees on that. Secrets are super important. Like, do you have like anything weird going on? You can add something also arbitrarily, right? If you just respect that, if it doesn't confuse the character, or if it doesn't ruin the context, by all means, right? Just add something on top. Is that risky? For sure. Of course. Sometimes I've placed something into the audition that wasn't scripted. I just placed that on top. I added something on my own that I felt was necessary in order to convey the message of the character. No holds barred. Yes, that sometimes is a risk, or sometimes it just gets the attention of the casting director. They're like, why did you make that choice? And you explain it, and that already is a conversation. So in any ways, whether or not they're going to like it, it's going to spark a conversation. It's going to spark a raised eyebrow. It's going to spark something. It's going to spark a reaction. You're going to stick out from your competitors. Again, pros recognize pros. Real recognizes real. Work will show. It will tell that you have done this type of background work. It's gonna be, yes, work, but in the end, the more you do it, the more automatically it will become, the less time you will invest into this, and the more automatically it will happen in the future. And you will at a certain point realize, like I realized after many, many years, that I do this now quite naturally, automatically when I read, right? One of our next masterclasses this year, by the way, our next masterclass is going to be 25th of May, and it's going to be about the improv process, right? So definitely join that. Super important. Like, how can we kick off the improv process by ourselves at home? How can we, by just writing a couple of things down, kind of start developing a scene out of the blue? How can we come up with ideas top of our head? Super important to add something on top, on something from our own, into the character. Super important also on set, if you have to juggle with a situation, knowing how to improv, or knowing the basics of the improv is another key of a successful career, and communicating your ideas. But besides that, like, if you want to add hidden meanings to your character and they make sense, make those courageous choices. No holds barred. Insert them. Do something that sticks out, because it's just that little difference sometimes that is a game changer, that is a deal breaker. What you can do is, if you have this role and you are interacting with another role for a long time in the script, or even if it's a short time or an important scene for what it's worth, write a letter as the character to the other character and give it to the actor. And so the actor needs to read this letter out of the perspective of his character. And so by that, you sometimes break also the ice with more famous actors, because they definitely appreciate that type of approach, instead of just going there and saying, hey, could we, go through our lines? It's like, hey, maybe of course, the famous actor knows when a new gun is on set, or someone who's less famous, that person most likely will search, some contact with that actor, especially if you have a lot of scenes with that person, right, with that actor. And so he expects that you make some sort of a networking move, right? This could be a way more subtle, elegant, and actually fruitful move, instead of just going there and saying, hey, should we rehearse our lines? Hey, do you want to go through the dialogue really quick? Because usually he will tell you no, because he has a lot of other stuff to do. But not all of them, right? I'm not just painting the superficial actor. It's because of the measurement of time that is really constrained on set, especially in big budget productions that make it almost impossible for the smaller roles to read with the bigger roles. So this could be sometimes like a nice backdoor to get access to that actor. You give him your time. It's like, hey, I wrote it as my character, a letter to your character. Whenever you have time, why don't you read it, and maybe you write me back, or you just tell me what you think about it. It's another gesture. It gives more space and more freedom to the famous actor, and it definitely established a way profounder connection between the two characters, because this is in the end what matters. When people will watch that movie, they will see your great interaction. They don't care about you kind of, you know, brothering up behind the scenes, or you connecting, or kind of, you know, linking with each other. They care about you having a great chemistry on set, on camera, and that definitely helps, instead of the usual, of course, just let's rehearse the lines together. So this is definitely something, again, a bit more courageous, but it works miracles. It works charms. It's also a great way for you, for yourself. Like, even if the other actor doesn't like to read it, or doesn't want to read it, or doesn't accept the letter, or just accepts it and doesn't read it, it doesn't matter. You wrote it. That's important. You made the effort. You stepped down even further into the world of the character, and you broke down the script from another angle, and you added something way deeper. So if the other doesn't want to join, that doesn't, in the end, it doesn't matter. It's your improvement that counts. And it's also the gesture, because that, of course, requires guts, and you showed and proved something to yourself that is way more valuable than getting the, you know, the recognition or the acknowledgement by somebody that you deem more famous or more important than yourself. It's, you're doing this for yourself because you are adding this component to the script and no one else. So last but not least, my favorite recipe is shower talks. I love to interact with myself as the character when I'm taking a shower. I feel water is doing something to my system. I don't know how you feel about it, but water, you know, I feel tired, I drink a glass of water, right? I need to get, you know, to another, I drink, like, water purifies you, it cleanses you. And when you have water on your skin, when you're taking a shower, when you're surrounded by this element, it's different than just sitting behind your desk. First of all, most likely you're naked, right? So you're completely exposed. And then there is this other element kind of engulfing you and also protecting you in a way. And so now you talk as the character. Nobody's listening, nobody's watching, you're completely on your own. There is no shield, there is no mask anymore. I guess this is why shower talks are super powerful, right? Have shower talks as the character about a certain pivotal situation in the script, about something that happened to you, about even something small, right? Just think of different answers, reactions that you get from the other characters, kind of elaborate on them, marinate on your own character, but just say it out loud. You know, speak the thoughts of the character while you're taking a shower. You will see how that kind of solidifies and makes the character more you. It solidifies the character inside of you, and it gives you more confidence in then producing it in front of the camera. If you can talk for yourself while you're naked on the shower, you can talk to thousands of people in front of the camera while you're dressed and nice makeup. Make sense? I hope so. Yes, and this would be the bonus tip. The more, you know, a bit more specific, maybe a bit more advanced, but I feel like this is what I did most of the time, talking to myself, asking myself these questions, writing stuff for myself down, comparing my character to an art piece, to architecture. I still do. I love to go somewhere where I see great architecture, if that's a museum or something classical, Gothic, whatever it is, Art Deco, something that inspires me, beautiful gardens. And I compare myself to this architecture, the character is like, how many windows do I have? How many stories can I tell? What kind of ornamentation do I have? What is my symmetry? Do I have symmetry? Am I more like a modern building, or more like a classical? Is it stuffed with you know, particular details, or is it more simplistic and clean and more distant and cold, or more warm and embracing? All these things help me to kind of inform, solidify, and crystallize the character more authentically, more generally, more originally. Because again, what a casting director, what the producer, what everyone wants to see is originality, something that is remarkable, that is out of the norm, something that you put on top. We want to see humorous behavioral creatures that go mad in front of the camera and are desperate in looking out for conflicts, for competition and clashes, and therefore produce a lot of entertainment, and also convey some ideas that after we leave the movie theater, after we switched off our TV set, after we closed our MacBook, stick with us and leave us a trace, a melody, a memory we can think about. And when we have achieved that, entertainment in the moment and reflection afterwards, we've achieved a little bit of art. And this is what we're here for in the first place. Art achievers. This is what we should aim at. And I hope this presentation today helped you to do exactly that. I will go back to you now and stop speaking, at least for a couple of seconds, and giving you the chance to ask questions. Angelica.
Questions. Let's see. When you were talking about becoming friends with directors, writers, or producers,
I didn't say friends. I didn't say friends.
Friends, partner. That's better, becoming some partners, right?
Working collaborators, creative partners. Yes.
Exactly. Shall we, as actors and actresses, be like I don't know how to say, but maybe in a certain emotional type of, circumstance? For example, right now I'm having, I've had a casting call for X Factor in Italy, and I will go there. I'm thinking about, of course, asking to the contacts that I already have to give me the names of these directors, producers, and writers so that I can actually research them.
Sure.
But after that, when I will be there, because it is an in-person casting call, when I will be there and, of course, do the audition, should I directly go straight to them in the first place or just after my audition? Because, of course, during the audition, they're gonna be the judges and, of course, also the audience. So I won't be doing that. But I was asking, for the best time and the best emotional status, emotional type of. Okay.
That's a great question. If I'm understanding this right, two things. So the people who are the judges, the people who are, kind of putting the jury together, whether it's a casting director, the judge of X Factor, a celebrity, whatever, they don't like to be approached like physically. Usually it takes away time, it makes things weird. And there is this holy barrier that, that kind of divides the people who are listening, the audience, the fourth wall, if you want to call it so, from the performer. And I think there is something about this holy barrier that always should be respected, because the moment you cross it, you're giving away your space and you're opening up to their space. If it really helps you to fight your nervosity, well, okay, so I guess you can do it and incorporate it, but I would always focus on first create your world. Come in, concentrate, say hello in a friendly way, mention their names. If you know their names, for sure that helps. Kind of have that personal connection. That is truly cool. But when you're auditioning, when you're playing, when you're on set, make sure you create your universe first. After you've done with your performance, then, receive the feedback, receive the compliments, shake hands, be transactional and friendly, for sure. If that kind of the situation kind of proposes this, for sure, do that. But let me give you another tip. These productions, especially X Factor, these casting productions, again, hard structure, the judge. Soft structure, everybody else, the crew, the people who are greeting you. Yes, exactly. The guy who has the microphone that does the interview with all the auditionees. These soft structures are important. They are the game changer, the way you behave to those people. Because again, they will observe and they see everything, how you behaved, how respectful you were, how open you were, how clear you were in processing the information, addressing everybody friendly, concentrating, all this stuff that happens before. That is truly important. Later on, the performance, that is just that is the cherry on top of the muffin. Everything else happens before you actually get on stage. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes. And also, for example, uh, when let's put it in a place that I get the number of the director of the show. Is it rude if I ask him if there's any opportunity that I can help in his future or upcoming shows?
No, absolutely not. There's nothing bad about that. If you seem to be a professional, skilled worker, he appreciates you reaching out. But make sure that you convey that message. So send in your portfolio, a nice reel, some good pictures, a nice cover letter. Make sure you send him like a professional package, and you tell them, "Hey, my name is Angelica. I'm getting this and this training. I've been at this and this show. I'm a fan of your work. I love what you're doing, and please, I just love the style on how you interpret movies or whatever it is, and I would love to be involved in the casting process for your next project, or would love involved to be, in your next film, whatever it is." So you already are there, present.
Okay. So the presentation letter or cover letter, what
Like a
was
nice,
it?
usually they are now one and the same thing. Like have a nice
Okay.
presentation letter with a nice
Mhm.
headshot with a couple of bullet points about your resume. It could be like really a quick thing. The more telling and the better the headshot is, that is the entrance, like the visual part. If you have also video material, short, high quality, if you make sure you record a nice monologue, this is what we do over here. We prepare you also for monologues that you can tape for yourself or that we love to tape as well. So if you need help and assistance, make sure to reach out. But yeah, tape something, have material, send it out, short, nice, funny letter that kind of describes where you're coming from, looking out for that collaboration. And definitely make sure to not leave it with the letter. If you see him popping up on Facebook, on Instagram, make sure to not be a stalker, but also not to be forgotten by tomorrow, right? Just find that right balance. And this is how you keep yourself also,
So
active.
if I got it right in my notes, I should by after reaching out, I should give him or her my portfolio. So I guess also my composite,
Yes.
my artist composite, reels, for example, a recorded monologue or me singing for X Factor, for
The
example.
strongest stuff that you have, not volume, but
The
quality.
strongest.
It's better to just send in one video where you blow people away instead of sending 4 videos where 2 times you are good, 1 time you're so la la, and the other one is a bad quality. You don't want to water down your product. Make sure to send in your best and strongest material.
Okay. Also, the photos, for example, how can I say this?
Headshots, you can, this is, headshots, it's also sometimes from country to country, it varies a little bit. But on Google is your friend. Kind of research what are the most common headshots. Look up what the stars in a certain country, how they
Because
are
I'm
usually.
asking actually if I have already sent my composites, artist composites in there, there's gonna be, 2 photos minimum. So
Right.
is it required to add more photos or is it fine just from the composites?
It sometimes they tell you if they want to see
Okay,
more.
okay. So
Usually
it is more optional,
it's
for
more
example.
optional, yes. Like if you have already 2 strong pictures that you send in, that's already good. Sometimes they ask you maybe for a full body shot picture, something in black and white, or with a different outfit, that could happen.
And last but not least, the presentation letter, which if
Right.
I wrote right, there should be short, so on point, and also nice or funny in this case. If
Yes.
it could be,
Yes.
of course, also funny.
Yes,
Well,
right.
if I wrote everything right, and you can give me more advice, I'm actually,
You know,
the end. I'm done.
I feel like like I said, it's also what you feel when you see that person. Like what I said in the beginning, you research that person, you see that person's face, you have a couple of ideas through the interviews how that person kind of feels things and acts.
Personality, for
The
example,
personality,
matching.
Right. So you kind of figure out that person
Okay.
for sure doesn't like funny or hyper humorous letters, right? That person likes to be more maybe. But then again, another director, you will find out like Peter Jackson, for example. Oh, this is like an incredible, like outgoing, very optimistic, gorgeous type of person. He has surely nothing against me sending in something a bit more weird and quirky and funny, right?
Well, thank you so much.
Of
It was
course.
really helpful. A really helpful advice.
And just let me tell you one thing. On your shirt, you have written, let me be myself, right? But this is actually wrong. You know, you have to cancel out everything that says let me, because you don't need permission from someone else to be yourself. Just myself. What should be
Like
written
this.
on the shirt, yeah, it should be just myself. This is who I am. You don't need
Okay.
to ask someone else permission for being that. You're just yourself.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Kimberly.
So I wanted to say, I think it's really interesting that it's the little things that make the role more alive. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That's, yeah, but I have no question.
Thank you. No, absolutely. If I just want to elaborate on that really quickly, before I was once, playing this very, very evil character, and I did a lot of, the stuff that we talked about today, but he was also a farmer, this evil character. And the moment I started kind of behaving like him, like understanding that he has to cut, sheeps manually in order to gain the wool, and doing his work, just doing this little thing. It had nothing to do with the lines or with the analysis. It was this little thing of kind of performing a couple of hours, his actions, that informed me way more than everything that I could analyze, right? Sometimes these little things, they give us a huge insight about our character, about the world we're in. And so definitely details. I mean, I love to also draw in a very detailed manner because of that, because everything is constructed. Life is constructed of billions of, millions of little details. Victoria.
Yes. First, before I ask my question, I have a little experience to share.
Sure.
That just popped up. I think it's a really great tip to look up the director and the people working there. But I also have an experience that it's also a bit dangerous, because I once looked up someone, and she was so incredibly crazy on Instagram. She did like no actor would post such stuff. And when I made the first contact, I showed her my craziest side, and she was like a bit.
Yes.
After that, I found out that she loves that, but only when she knows you. Okay, so I also had made my impression of her a little bit different than it was in reality.
That's an excellent point. I got a book recommendation for you, The 48 Laws of Power. But it's actually Machiavelli. You can also read Il Piccolo Principe from Niccolo Machiavelli, for what it's worth, the German or the English translation. But The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene explains it very nicely. It's necessary to make a profound and to kind of assess granularly who you're working with and who your master is, but make sure to never outshine the master. If you are louder, brighter, fancier, crazier than the master is not going to like you. Because even if you are a great talent in the beginning, he's going to be jealous. That's what our reptilian center does. It creates jealousy, and therefore he won't like you. Never outshine the master in the beginning. Make sure to kind of assess, oh, that's a crazy person, and then be very effective about your choices and to not overdo it. Because, you know, the status quo is given by those people who hire us. And if we outshine them by day one, they will think, oh my God, what's going to happen with this person in 30 days from now? She's going to take control of my organization. I'm not going to hire her. She's more a threat than a valuable asset to my endeavor. Does that make sense?
Yes, I sometimes find it a bit difficult to really figure it out, because when I don't show that crazy side, I'm not really myself, or maybe I am, but I find it a little bit not boring.
You know, I totally get what you're saying, because I love to be crazy as a role as well. But sometimes, you know, sometimes it's also our wrong understanding of what crazy actually is. If you really do the structural work that I'm proposing today, you understand the parameters and the context of the character, then even a slightly courageous choice might be deemed crazy from the context of that character's vision, right? So sometimes even a little thing can be regarded as crazy because it is crazy for that character. So not necessarily crazy needs always to be 100% crazy. It needs to be 100% crazy for that character. And that for us is maybe just 30%, right? If I would tell Jim Carrey, hey, you can go crazy with this character, he will add millions of layers to craziness, right? That's way too much, right? Probably I have to tone him down. And another character, another actor probably would have to tone him up. We always have to find the right balance and things. But usually we know what the right balance is by analyzing and assessing it effectively prior.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but how do you show your full potential if you can't be sure which parts you can show at first time? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, of course you will fail with this. It doesn't mean that this is, like I told you, this is not a like completely safe guide type of navigation. Yes, maybe you will slip up here and there. I once had a comedian client, and we did different things in the beginning to kind of crack her up and understand really what she wants to tell on stage. And that led us into certain directions where, you know, she, you know, just like, oh, no, that was way too much, or that didn't really work out. Yes, you do mistakes. You, like I said, and this is, they are vital. They are super important to understanding your levels respectfully to the other levels.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question. It is about, again, about point 2 and 3.
Right.
After you said you do it with a different view, you do it once from just like the facts and once from the character. Mm-hmm. I started to get it, but I still don't really got it. Is it really necessary to do these 2 steps really separated? Can't you just...
No, you can't. I know where you're heading with this. I tried it myself, and believe me, you can't. There's a huge difference between establishing tone, style, rhythm, pace, ambience, everything of the movie, and having a rational understanding of that. And then there is your exploration inside of that world, inside of that universe that the director is proposing. And these are 2 separate things. When you are kind of, you know, creating your own lifeline, let's say your log line, right? You're asking yourself, hey, what has my character experienced before entering this movie? This is stuff that wasn't written by the director. It's not in the script. It wasn't posted by by the casting director. This is stuff that you have to come up with. So there are 2 separate entities. But then again, of course, they blur into each other with the practice. That's for sure. But when you first analyze and assess them, there are 2 different things.
So it's necessary.
Yes, absolutely. I feel it's super necessary, because even if you in the beginning are, you know, you really suck at this, and I certainly did. In the beginning, I was whether writing too much or too less, and sometimes it hit the mark, sometimes it was absolutely not relevant, right? But you kind of understand there too, is like, what is it that I really need to inform myself about the life prior this character prior entering this movie? What is it that I usually need to know? It's actually three things: emotionally, psychologically, and physically. That's it. I need to know where I'm coming from, psychologically, physically, emotionally. And that I can't just by reading the log line, the storyline. I have to kind of write stuff on my own. I have to make some assumptions. Also, you know, make maybe some wrong assumptions. Yes. Come up with conclusions and comments that might be not completely agreeable with what the director's vision is. And then that's the beauty also of collaborating in a creative field such as entertainment, because the director will tell you, hey, this is quite different to what I thought about this scene. It's like, and you, hey, what did you think? It's like this and that. And then you explain your point. It's like, yeah, I thought about this and that. And they're like, oh, okay, I haven't never thought about this. Of course not, because the director has to think about billions of other things as well. So he can't granularly explore every single character unless he kind of takes 20 years to write the screenplay. And even then, you still have a subjective assumption about the character's life prior to entering the movie.
Mm-hmm. And when you, for example, watch a scene that is about your character, but you haven't entered the show yet, when you watch it from point 3, you watch it out of the character's view, but from which point do you view it on point 2? Like,
yeah, it's simple. When you are the character and you're reading a comment about your character in the script, you know, you have an emotional impact to that, because of course you defend your character's choices. And so, this person is thinking this and that of me. So that informs me on my right hemisphere, if I want to abstract it now and keeping the blue and red side always active, that would inform my emotional side. But then I jump into the rational side and I look up the storyline, the log line, I look up at the dates. It's like, why does this character have a problem with me? Like, analytically, was there a clash in the past? Did I do something wrong? I just had a script about, you know, two brothers, you know, kind of having a long conflict with, you know, throughout their lives. And it all started in their childhood. And so they have different views in the present now about what happened in the past. So you have the emotional side that informs you as a person, Victoria. This is what you feel about it. This is what you think about it. But then you have the date when everything happened or a certain event, and that you can look up. That is just analytical research, if you want to call it so.
Mm-hmm. How are you not emotionally involved when they're talking about your character?
Yeah, because you're always getting emotionally involved, right? When somebody's talking bad about you, right? You kind of read a message that someone, you know, two friends of yours, they're sending each other a message. Oh, Victoria, she was like really bada boom. It's like, oh. And then you ask what happened, and then you realize, oh, yes, they were offended because you forgot to do something in the past. And so this is, again, you know, how you evaluate also your emotions, right? So you get offended first, and then you look up what could be the possible reason for that. And then you maybe kind of evaluate a little bit your initial being offended, and you kind of, you juggle a little bit through reason how much that will affect you as a character. Let's say you are a very stubborn character, a very strong-minded character, then you won't understand all the explanations. You still are going your route. Now, if you're a really agreeable character, if you're someone who's really, you know, thoughtful, then you maybe look at these facts and think, maybe they were right in the end after all. So maybe I should be more forthcoming with these people. And that will change, again, what we said, the long-term relationships inside of the script.
Mm-hmm. Do you have another example? What my example was the scene they were talking about your character, to watch it like 2 times from 2 different views. Do you have another example, for example, for doing theater, what this would be that you have to do from 2 different views?
Yes, you can like, especially in theater, that's a good question. And especially in theater, you can ask three questions, like, what are these characters saying about me? Especially in Shakespeare, Goethe, classical stuff, this is super important. What are the other characters saying about me? What am I saying about the other characters? And what I'm thinking of myself. Always go through these 3 questions. This is how you evaluate the intensity of your reactions throughout the script.
Mm-hmm. And my last question would be, when I read a script and I feel a very intense emotion, and then I stay there in audience or even in audition, and I see it completely different. I was always told, don't go for it. You do what you always did in every rehearsal. But
who told you that? Not an actor. No, go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Every time you have a different hunch, play it. Play it. Play it. Risk it. Risk it. Risk it. Always be courageous, courageous, courageous. Bold, bold, bold choices.
Why do you believe in that, even if you have less preparation, because you feel it? Or
yes, because that's ultimately what gives you the power. It's our feelings, it's our emotions. We are behavioral creatures. We are rational creatures as well, but we are mostly behavioral creatures, and that is the important part. We want to see behavior that is real. So if you're suppressing behavior, that is immediately noticeable, and so the casting director will be disappointed of you because you're suppressing something that is highly valuable, and it has way more acting potential than what you're thinking you're playing right now.
I was always told, don't do much more. You don't have to think you have to do more in audition like that. Don't go for new things like you always rehearse.
No, if you have a hunch, I mean, you shouldn't be making a technique out of it. I always have to search for something new. That's for sure, because that's missing the point of, they look out for the adequate actor for the corresponding role. They're looking for the adequate fit. But if that adequate fit delivers me something 80% of the mass wasn't delivering to me, that person is to me more interesting than the others.
Okay. So thank you for your masterclass today.
Of course, you're very welcome. Hey, Carmen.
How's it going?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any questions as such. It was just really insightful. And I was just trying to listen and gain more, gain more knowledge about this thing. So that's good. And I took a screenshot of your whole page diagram. It looked really nice. Very good with the doodling.
Thank
really
you.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah, I'll obviously I'll go over it whenever I have an audition now. So that gives me a nice idea of how to see the script, and yeah, so very insightful. Thank you for the class.
No, thank you so much for showing up. Definitely also follow our adventures on YouTube. It's the COACHMC Studio, the COACHMC on Instagram. Be part of the Telegram chat group. If you're happening to be down here in South Florida, make sure to contact us as well. We have always events, festivals, film screenings, a lot of stuff going on. We have a thriving, very funny and colorful acting community down here. And so definitely make sure to reach out whenever you can. And definitely, yes, if you have an audition, if you have something important coming up, like you really want to nail this, we help people online for 11 years now. And so this is one of our, cornerstones of the COACHMC Studio, is the self-tape process, the audition process. We're really into that, besides everything that is career strategy, acting tips, and mindset tips, of course. So thank you so much for joining and being part of this. Thank you, Kimberly, Angelica, Victoria. Thank you to Alessandra, to Amy beforehand. Thank you to Come On, and to everybody else. It's been a great opportunity again to connect with you guys. Make sure to stay updated with the COACHMC Studio. We always deliver the best and most effective content that we can in order to help you to propel your creative message forward, no matter where you are, no matter what you're trying to form out of your core and to propose to your audience. Because never forget, art needs to be displayed in order to be perceived. Otherwise, it's therapy and not art. And art, in order to be displayed rightfully, it needs to be beautiful, but it also needs to convey an idea, a message, something like an ideal, a strong current, something you stand for, a purpose, a burning desire, something that goes beyond just telling the lines of a script. This is what we're here for, whether we are architects, whether communicators, real estate, pitchers, actors, comedians, mimics, whatever we are. In the end, what lets the heart of the audience blossom up and ultimately remembers our melody is that we convey emotions, that we give them an idea, something to think of, and that we entertain them and let them escape into another realm of thought, because by that they realize how manifold this beautiful universe is. And we are the interpreters of this little shrapnel, of this fraction of an atom compared to the size of this incredible universe we're living in. And if for a couple of years of our life we are able to translate these incredible notions from the universe, these powerful resonating waves, and we let them be just, flowing through our body, and we are the conduit for that great art, we served a purpose. And that is more than we could ever dream to achieve, to serve a creative purpose, to heal someone else's art, and to have a quest that we really believe in. So thank you so much, guys, for joining today's masterclass. Next one is going to be May 25, about the art of improv, which again is a completely different issue, another wonderful skill that we as artists, as actors, need to master in order to become truly skillful players and performers. I invite you to join that one. We're going to definitely also have Breaking Down the Script Volume 2 further down the road this year, something a bit more modified, a bit more advanced in terms of tips and recommendations. We have this Saturday, like every Saturday, on YouTube Live, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Saturday Night Hypnosis. I'm part of the OG panel there for 89 consecutive episodes now. Well, I missed a couple of those, but I was part of the, of the first one. And today we have Eric July from the Ripperverse as our guest. That's an incredible opportunity, big honor for us, as well as small, medium, and big size YouTubers as we are. Definitely follow our adventures. Every Tuesday and Thursdays, there's open class doodles happening, 3 p.m. on Thursdays and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. Talks and Acting, our interview show is gonna roll out very soon with beautiful interview partners starting from Monday, where we have Lucy Lennox from An Actor's Home. Also include the links to that show, so you're gonna join us there, because we're gonna keep you updated with all the great creators, performers, artists, and masters of their field, in order to keep you updated with the latest developments. Thank you so much for joining. See you the next time. Now you're ready to perform.